My name is Shola Young for the presentation elaborated one. My question is, if we have a weather situation that we won't have sun for mostly like 5-6 days, how do we store light and how long can the DC be stored?
Good morning. My name is Eva Adegbongbe. I'm thinking as an investor, if I have a building, a rented apartment, does it make sense to make the whole ceiling, solar panel? And can I now sell that power to my tenants? Is there a law or something? I'm just asking for your advice so that they don't have to start putting their own solar panel and then there's an extra attraction to my building that I'm providing you 24 hours power. Just your advice.
My name is Theophilus Onungwega Daniel. I just want to make a contribution, not a question per se, on the last statement that the presenter said that banks are not willing to finance solar renewable energy. Banks are willing if there is convincing business plan. No, when you have convincing business plan that you can actually use that project as a collateral, and there are investors outside the country that are even willing to bring in money. This is what we do. We've written to outside the country, banks outside the country, investors outside the country. So all we need to do that if you're interested in that kind of project, let's sit down and look at it. You don't need to go and look for, we can use that project as collateral. Once it's convincing, they will log in. Thank you.
Incidentally, my contribution slightly clashes with his own. When you talk collateral for a startup, because I was going to suggest that can we look at organizations like the Bank of Industry? Because if you go to the regular bank, if our last contributor works for a commercial bank, you will agree with me that such a project will not survive because of the cost of funds. I've tried it. It will not survive. How many of you lend less than 20% per annum? So basically, I wanted to suggest that we look at organizations like the Bank of Industries and perhaps equity. I mean, we did something under Mr. Eworo then on this export thing. We can begin to look at that. If some of us are interested, we can pool resources together because it's a move of the future. It's a move. I don't want to turn this to another whatever, but each time we celebrate Dangote, I weep inside that. I hope this guy knows what he's doing. What becomes of this investment if we get it right in another 2 years? We are committing $12 billion for a product that if things move well, we shouldn't be consuming in 3 years. So it's an issue we want to look at. Okay, Mrs. Speaker.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dupe Adesoy. I'm not talking like a business person. My question is like an end user. When everywhere becomes electric, our roof is electric, our windows are electric, what's the safety, especially talking about children around? Is it as dangerous as the real electricity, or is there any way they paddle this thing to make it safe? My second reaction, I learned something that you cannot store alternative current, that we can only store energy in DC. Thank you, we have a DC in the house.
Okay, my name is Debo Adesoye. I just want to ask, how can we correct there is so much wrong, people think wrongly about renewable energy, particularly solar energy, because of they fall into the hands of the charlatans in the industry. There's so many quacks in the industry. I was with a doctor in his clinic a few days ago and said he has used it and will never use it again because it has failed him. So that's the problem in the industry. How can we make sure that people, with the new people's interest, in taking to that source. That's very important. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so starting with the first question, how with instability in weather? Now, actually, it goes back to, like I said, proper design. When you are designing a system, one of the things you begin to ask the user, how many days do you want this thing to be on? We did a design for a construction company many years back. They're somewhere in Apapa. Their vice chairman is a Zambian. So he's only on weekend, he logs on to the system. And the charge he gave us that I know Nigeria strike can occur, that if they switch off 5 p.m. in the evening, on Friday evening, and he wants to log in anytime on weekend, that he wants that in on till 8 a.m. Monday morning. So we're talking of 3 days, what we call autonomy. How long do you want the system? And what is going to cost is storage. Like I said, essentially, when you are designing such system, I can now look at the size of the battery bank that I'm going to put there. Like the battery bank is like an overhead tank. All right? So the capacity of your tank will determine how long, it will last. So you can design system that will last. It might not be the most cost-effective thing, but like I said, that's why the need is important. What is important to you? There could be a situation, like I said, you look at the airport, for example, an airport should never be without electricity. The risks are many. A plane can crash because of that. The people in control tower, if something happens. So, like I said, there are systems that, like I said, that you can say that, look, even if NEPA fails, all right, that for 1 day, I want to keep this, that will give you enough time. And when you are stacking those kind of things, it's not those kind of small battery you would do. You put containers. Some of them come in 40-foot containers. And you can line them up, and it can give you electricity with it. Nobody will even know that anything is going. So it's a question of, like I said, it normally starts with properly appraising the need of the user. Okay, and it's possible, and you see any professional outreach, that's where you start from. It's not a question of throwing quotation in people's face. You sit down with them to see. In fact, there are some buildings. I was talking to a friend in US. Now, the building next to him couldn't qualify because all those fancy roofs, and it was looking another direction. That if they just put solar panel there, it will be a waste of money. And in their own case, they don't use storage. So it will not be able to generate enough. So they will need to qualify, look at in fact, there was one we did at the camp, and the woman, she stays in US, she comes home, and one of the issues at that time, there was no supply at all at the camp throughout that convention. And when we're now looking at, look, madam, you will need this number of panels, and we saw the roof. The roof was, all those fancy things looking high in the sky. And what it ended up doing, but in order to meet our requirements, so we explained to her, you need to use more panels than and we're able to achieve that. So everybody, the house is always on. In fact, there was a day they called her that, look, the light in your house is on, and the woman is not at home, but because it's generating every day, the battery is fully charged. So the key issue is that once a proper design is done, you can meet any requirement. Even if the weather is for, like I said, I think throughout last year in my office, we only have to charge the generator 3 times. And that was at that time of about like 8 days when the cloud, by that time we ran out of the capacity in our battery, and I said, okay, let's go and look at diesel. The diesel generator in my house, I've moved it out because I've not touched it for the past 3 years, and there's no point in tying down an asset. I'm looking for a buyer, if you know. Okay. Praise God. Now, in a rented apartment, actually one of the key things I think that will be happening is that we're actually adding value, to the building. Okay, so I think the question of really negotiation, which I think the estate agent and valuers can assist with, so that if I already know that each of the units, like most average household, if you are not using AC, for example, under 3 kVA will meet, you have your whole lighting, your fridge, freezer, all those key elements, apart from having to iron or having to put the air conditioner on, they are more than enough. Okay, so, but I think like average household, 5 kVA, if you want to throw in 1 or 2 ACs, So I think for each flat, a 5 kVA design with, if the roof, I think one of the key things that will join us, many of us, if we are going to new building project, please talk to your architect to call a solar engineer to help, so that even before you begin to design your roof, so that it doesn't cost more to reorientate, the roof to look in a direction that will be of value to you. Okay, so that what we have, it will be adding value. So when the tenant comes in and they see now that they are paying very little for electricity, it's a value addition, to them. On the issue of financing, I think I'm going to take my seat close to my brother. I want to know your bank, sir. And you will take commitment in this state that I must get facility when I come to your bank. All right, because my experience. Yes, also Bank of Industry currently have 6 billion available for financing. But I'll tell you that they are not looking at manufacturing, it's trading. And currently it's also at 9%. And there are so many other percentages. We approach them, a renewable energy they've come to address severally. The government is here to get it right, to know that manufacturing in any country is not something you put. We see LG, we see Samsung. I was in one of Samsung facility in Korea, South Korea. You know that a lot of the research thing are centrally coordinated. Have you looked at the product of both LG and Samsung? They are from the same source. Countries are looking at where do I have competitive advantage. If you look at the investment of China in solar infrastructure, every panel that they export, the manufacturer get money. They are doing everything to push people into production. It's very strange. You walk through a street in those industrial areas, one thing or the other is going on. All right, so the key is that we're here to get it. All right, financing, you can't finance this industry. Who saved Tesla? It was a former president of the US. Tesla was about to go under. That they give them a lifeline. The government actually give them a loan because they know how strategic EV cars are. And they are dictating the pace. They have factory now in China. They are setting up one in Europe. They are setting one in China. And the overall effect is going to come to US economy. So the key issue for us is that our bank, I know them, of course, they are to make profit. But it's very important that the national interest, and there's really nothing, capitalism at the end of the day, is national interest. And everybody has learned both from COVID and from the Ukraine war that is going on. You know what happened to US during COVID? They have to depend on China for medical supply. It's something that didn't rub well on them. So now a lot of people are now beginning to look, what can I do in-house? And for us too, I'm hoping it will not be too late. That time will come. That just like what happened now. If you ever done importation, what happened to shipping charge? The ships are not moving. Things cannot come in. Okay, dollar as of time I checked last was 612. 612 naira to $1. So what kind of business, what kind of interest, and by the time you have 20%, like Mr. Oluwole said, what kind of margin that will be left to you? So the key is that government and the finance industry will need to sit down and see what they can begin to do to help this industry. And like I said, it's a risk-free industry, if you ask me. Because the products there, they are solid. All right? So I'll be coming over to you, sir. But like I said, you're going to promise this house that I will get financing. So on safety concern, one of the key things in the industry, like I said, if you do things professionally, there are a lot of risk, of course, in electricity. And like a lot, I was discussing with my friend yesterday to you, lightning is very common. All right, especially in this southern part of the country. And it's very important that when you build such tall building, you have a lightning arrestor on top. What it helps you to do is to divert when such things strike. And then also in your circuit, the circuit breaker that I put there is when many of the electrician, don't do. Your building must be arched. Normally, when you just, and that has nothing to do with solar, with normal plain electricity. Those protective gear that are called their circuit breaker, what they do, the way they work is that when everything are normal, your circuit breaker is not working. Your arc is not stretched. But when a fault occurs, or a lightning strike, for example, what it will do, it will generate, when you call a lightning strike, it will generate megavolts. It could go to several megavolts. And when that one strike, it can kill. Or that guy we are talking about, Nikola Tesla, is the one also that designed the full electrocution machine. The electricity you use in cooking is the one that also can send someone to great beyond. All right, but when a lightning strike, what the circuit breaker will normally do, if the earthing is right, is that as it begins to sense that rushing current in the earth wire, if you remember, most houses, they will not put your earth wire for you. They are setting you up for big trouble in future. You need to go and look at your electrical network. Is the third wire is normally bluish, greenish, yellowish, in color. All right? So its function, that's what your circuit breaker work with. When it strikes, what you do, one current begins to flow in the earth wire. That's what trips your circuit breaker and knock it off so that harmful current will not flow. But if you allow it to continue, things will begin to burn. All right, so you want to look that you design things properly, but normally when you connect your solar panel, your inverter, of course, it's not an area you go to. You want to put it at a place, that is away from where children can go. You want to install it above their height. They are curious. My first foray into electricity too, I was just looking at this thing, they switch on and off, and I took my knife one day when nobody was around the corner, and I was trying to cut that switch to do an experiment I want to do. You can know the rest of the story. I got thrown out by a few meters. So I began to learn that it's not something to play with. So there are enough security devices, not safety devices, but like say a good design, also like a surge suppressor, when you are designing, and the surge suppressor is on both sides. There's one that can come from solar panel because I said it's exposed. You know that all the corners of a solar panel are aluminum. So it's a conductor. So when lightning strikes, it can conduct, and it will come to your inverter. So normally what we'll do also you have a surge suppressor planted on it so that if such one comes, it absorbs it. What the surge suppressor will do, it will get killed rather than kill your equipment. Or in fact, some of them, the very good ones among them, they will show you indicator to say that I'm dead. I've taken the bullet, and then you can replace it. And also you want to be sure that you have good circuit breaker, that we call it earth current. What it will do for you that when such thing happens, it trips and it removes the possibility. And then on the other side also of NEPA, I'm sure you have seen that, you've seen what they call high voltage in the house. Okay, what normally leads to that, like I said, electric AC is not something you can store. It's always a very careful matching thing that NEPA engineers do. Because of our unstable generation. You see, when a generating station is putting on power, they call people down the line, put on the load. So your load you are bringing must match the power that is coming. When both of them coincide, everything is normal. But if the load you are bringing is lower, what will happen is that the voltage on the grid will rise. That's what you call high voltage. And of course, everything in the circuit will begin to explode. All right, the other one happens also. If the power they are bringing is too low for the load, the voltage will dip. Your thing will look like candle. So it's a band. That's why sometimes it might still be good to stabilizers are no longer fashionable. Also, it might be something you put at the input, of your provider, so that it can help locally within your own household to help to stabilize, the voltage that is coming on. But in terms of general safety, it's a very safe technology. Thank you very much. Someone asked a question about what about the slide? I'm sure the committee will be making the slides available to all participants. Then there was a question about how do you match solar panel capacity with battery capacity? Maybe you come later during the presentation. Like I said, the issue is about your requirements. It's your requirements, your load, what kind of activity are you doing, whether in your house or in the office, that will help an engineer to be able to let you know exactly the number of panels that you are going to need and what type of battery storage that you will require. It's not something you determine, upfront. It's something that normally comes out of reviewing your activities. There's a question about microinverters. How can you handle the output voltages? Just like microinverters, their output is already AC. What you do is that you parallel them to get increased capacity. It's what we call AC coupling. Just like you have DC coupling, when you are stacking batteries together, you do the same thing also, for AC. Our banker friend is saying that funds are available. He told my logs, and we'll be taking him on, after this meeting. Okay. Someone asked, why are batteries rated in kilowatt hour these days? And what's the relative to what it used to be in amp hour? Batteries rating is in amp hours. That one is telling you like how many current will you be able to provide for over a given time. Now, the equipment that are rated kilowatt hour are what we call BESS. That's battery energy storage system. And what you have in BESS, we don't really have too much time to. They are equipment that have both lithium and inverter combined together in a single product. A very good example is Tesla. The product that Tesla is selling is BESS. It's a combined inverter and lithium storage together. And normally you rate inverters by kVA or kilowatt. That's why you are saying this is a capacity. But battery, so when you combine the two of them together, you have kilowatt hour, telling you that kilowatt will tell you this is the total capacity this thing can support. Then the hour rating tells you how long this particular item can last. Someone is asking, why can't we pull resources together to start a storage production facility here in Nigeria? I'll tell you that I attempted that a couple of years back. Like I told you, in one of my, I think actually in Korea, we got an offer. The company we're talking with, they manufacture both battery and the equipment to do it. And the Exim Bank were willing to provide the funding for 3 years, but we have to pay back. But they require a bank in Nigeria to confirm it. And that's where the problem comes in. They will treat it as a new facility. And like I said, you need to go and get both the living and non-living to be able to meet the conditionality. It's really a question of environment, and we're hoping that let's keep praying and getting our PVC ready, that the Lord will give us a president that, because it's like Engineer Wolu mentioned, it's every aspect of our national life. What happened to the oil industry? What happened to the first plantation I visited as a young boy at school was where they processed rubber, somewhere around Ikenne. We used to export rubber, but today all those plantations are gone. They were never replaced. So someone is asking, my phone number is 080-22907805. And I'm sure you also find it in the copy of the slide. Someone said in information, 14 companies have already applied NEC licenses to deploy 1.2 megawatt solar. Of course, anything above 1 megawatt, you require NEC's permission, to do it. I think that's by way of information. Yes, there are some activities that are going on already, but it's not at the scale. You look at the problem we have with energy supply, the scale at which we are going, and of course, all the inputs we use are all imported. And that shouldn't really be the way to go. You can imagine the multiplying effect if a lot of those components are being manufactured locally in Nigeria. It will create research options. I can tell you won't believe in faraway place. I think in Iran, they announced a major advance in perovskite. They moved it to about 36% efficiency. That's a country that would think have nothing to do with technology. So it's a question of really encouraging us and our government to begin to create an environment where things can begin to happen within our country. And just really 84, actually, I built an inverter. And it was, I would say I was a bit ahead of the country. In fact, the very first venture I got into was how to commercialize it. And we were looking for a company to one transformer for it because it was a bit, specification was a bit above what the market was producing. But what do you do in an environment where you have to produce everything? Even ask Engineer Lado what he's doing with power or water. You have to practically provide everything for yourself. So, madam, it's not that engineers are not trying, but you can't go beyond what your country offers you. And that's why it's very important for us who come in as our next president, so that we'll have people who can provide an environment for things to begin to function in the country. Thank you very much.